Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Panola Pride. Our guest is Mrs. LeGrone, and we welcome you back each Thursday and so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Y'all just had a super day last Saturday at your rummage sale for your fundraiser.
Yes, we did. We're trying to finish the upstairs of the building and get the museum in order for our big opening next fall. So we had a rummage sale for that purpose, and we appreciate everybody who helped us. We did have a successful day.
Good turnout.
Good turnout, good sales, and we felt good about the day.
All right.
We reached our goal, and we felt real pleased.
And the sun was warm, but y'all all survived.
Yeah, it was a lovely day. But
I think when I was there were people going in every direction hunting sunscreen and
right.
sunblock.
Yes. I used quite a good bit of sunblock because I blister easily.
Oh, well. I'm glad that everything worked out well and you had a successful fundraiser. You were telling me before we went on the air that you had some, this has been an unusual week of out-of-state visitors visiting the library.
Right. We've had people from Georgia, people from Tennessee, and then surrounding areas galore, you know, and all over Texas and Louisiana and the neighbors. But these people from awful ways that came to here because they knew we had the roots that they needed.
The word is getting out
amongst
the circle of people who need that information.
Yes, and it is bringing people our way.
Very good.
And they are not here just for an hour or two. They're many times overnight.
Share our motel space.
I don't know whether
I
don't know whether people have thought about it or not, but we deliberately set our schedule 2 days in a row, so that those who couldn't finish what they needed in one day could stay overnight at our motels and come to us the second day. So we operate on Tuesday and Wednesday, strictly with volunteers. We had some people in there yesterday and said, "You mean none of these people are paid?" I said, "Not a dime. These people work because they want to be of service to other people in getting this information together, the whole thing." And then I showed them the scrapbook where we started. And they are, you know, when we went down for the inventory of the building before we ever did anything, we took some pictures. And I said, these rooms you're in now, this is where we started. And they cannot believe it. And they said, "How many years you've been working on this?" And we said, 3. And
a lot of progress has been made in 3 years.
Much progress in 3 years.
Very good.
So we're real proud of what's done. Today I thought we might talk about one of the interesting but somewhat mysterious centers in this county that was a busy place years ago.
Talk about a place instead of a person.
Place instead of a person, and persons connected with that place, of course.
All right.
And that's Old Grand Bluff. You know, you get into finding out how it began and what it represented, and that was the busiest crossing of the river. Grand Bluff brought more people, the road, by way of Grand Bluff, coming in from Shreveport, coming in from Jefferson, Marshall. More people came to East Texas by way of Grand Bluff than any other crossing on the river. And so naturally, you're interested in what happened at Grand Bluff. So we've done a good bit of tracking down of some of those things. And many people probably that hear us now do not know where Grand Bluff is. The first I knew of it was when I was a child. We went to Grand Bluff fishing, and overnight, you know, and my family was not fishermen, but they went with the neighbors, you know, and all camped overnight. And so I didn't know about it being such an important gateway to East Texas until mature years. But it was on the river Bluff, on a high bluff. That's the reason it's called Bluff, of course. Just downriver from what is now Highway 59 to Marshall. It's downriver about a mile from the present crossing of the river. And at the beginning of the county, of course, or beginning of the republic, there were no bridges. And this was a ferry, and it was the busiest ferry in Panola County. And it did not have a post office until 1847, but it was a pretty good-sized village. It was a shipping village. They had river boats on the river that brought a lot of the people in by river boats. And it was a high bluff, and is still a high bluff there. And then just down from the town, the village by the ferry, a cemetery developed, because a lot of times in crossing, wagon trains in crossing, there'd be sick people that would die, and that's the way the cemetery started. And Grand Bluff Cemetery has gone through several periods of deterioration and then being reclaimed, and we really have the boys in the technical shop of the high school to thank for building a modern good fence around it and an iron gate, and then they led in the research to get a historical marker for it. So it is now marked so anybody can find it. But we don't know who all is buried there because most of the graves are lost, but we know a few of them. And we do know that Robert Wyatt's first wife died there on the way in, and she's buried there. And a little girl named Frances Hall died there while they were crossing, you know, making the crossing across the river. They were sick and died, and were buried there. These two families settled in the western side of the county, the Wyatts and the Halls. And other members of the family, Robert Wyatt later became a commissioner in this county and reared a family over in the Sand Hill area. Dr. Sterrett, who was an early doctor, had two little daughters that were buried there. He first set up his, when in fact he married one of the Valter girls there in Grand Bluff and set up his practice there, but they later moved to the Beckville area, and most of his years of practice, medical practice, were from Beckville rather than from Grand Bluff. But they were still there when these little daughters died, and they have gravestones, so we can find them. And when I first started going out there, this little iron fence, decorated fence around those two little graves was a pretty thing. And the gate had a lock on it that had a Masonic emblem on it. But all that's been, you know, deteriorated by vandals. In fact, there have been some grave diggers out there with, you know, with these metal detectors looking for things in graves. And, you know, I consider them grave robbers, but they think nothing about it if they can get by with it. It's against the law, but then the law can't guard old lost cemeteries, you know. And so it has had its day of being mistreated, as all the others. You can't take care of these cemeteries after they aren't used anymore. There's just not anything you can do about it. They go back to nature. And maybe that's the way it ought to be. I don't know. I did have a strange man come into the county once that called me and asked me, did I know that there was a Macedonia cemetery, old Macedonia cemetery out here in a pasture. I said, yes, sir. Well, why haven't you done something about it, he said. I said, what would you suggest? He says, well, first of all, it's in a pasture. I says, yes, I know, but I don't own that land. And he says, well, can't you make them take down the fence? I said, no, sir. He says, well, the law ought to. I said, okay, tell me about it. He said, well, I'm going to see about it. I said, let me know how you come out. But we don't have any authority to go on private property and tell them what to do with it. Most people don't destroy it, but they go ahead and use the land around it, and then in some cases it just goes to the forest again. But there's not anything back to Grand Bluff. There's not anything we can do. Grand Bluff has gone back to the forest. Just say it's a ghost town now. Nothing there except the remains of that cemetery. The old tree that was the cable tree stood there until about 3 years ago. I got pictures of it years ago with the scars around it where the cable had been. And then about 3 years ago, I talked about it to Robbie Sutcliffe, and she's so interested we went down so she could see it. And she took a good picture of it, but it was dying. And she was so concerned about it had had a history, you know, and let's try to save it. So she got the tree doctors in there, but they said it's too late, let it go, it's had its life. And so now it's gone. That's just one of the things that once was there. But I did do a painting of it and put that painting in the museum. you know, as a remembrance of what helped the crossing of the rivers.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be strong trees to pull those cables, you know, and this was one of them. Well, that is locating Grand Bluff. Now then, what about some of the things that happened there? Well, first of all, this eastern side of the county, many people do not realize this now, but it was much more densely populated than the western side when Panola County was formed. The two villages, Pulaski and Grand Bluff, were really the largest villages in the county area when the county was formed. See, there was no Carthage. There was nothing here. And so when they had to choose a county seat, these two immediately came forward and wanted to be chosen. Well, the choice fell on Pulaski, and the people at Grand Bluff were up in arms about it, you know. And so the first county judge, John Allison, lived at Horton, which is real close to Grand Bluff, you know. It's that community right there by. And so they protested, not he, but I mean the neighbors protested, and the law really was that the county seat needed to be within 5 miles of the center of the county. And so they had an election and declared Pulaski just a temporary one until they could settle it with public election. And they had an election, and since the loss, and Grand Bluff and Pulaski both made a big plea for it, you see. But the county people realized by then that it was against the law to have it that far from the center with either one of them. And so they explored the idea of getting a place near the middle of the county, and that's when Jonathan Anderson promised the land, though he didn't own this land at that time. His brother-in-law owned it, and he arranged. And this is what I'd like people to try to understand, how difficult it is to track this stuff through. Somebody makes a promise of something, and he's got to do some maneuvering to carry out that promise. Jonathan Anderson knew that he could make a trade with his brother-in-law, but he didn't know whether to take the land or not, so he didn't do anything about it until they made the choice of the center here as Carthage for the county seat. But we're talking about Grand Bluff. Of course, they were disappointed again, but it was by now a pretty good-sized little village by the time Panola County was formed. See, it predated Panola County, and that's what we're getting to. The first name for it was not Grand Bluff at all. It was Brewster's Bluff. And in all of the early road records, it was measure distance from Brewster's Bluff. And so I began to investigate the Commissioner's Court records for the beginning of the county and deed records, and found out that A.B. Brewster came in here and that he bought that land. Well, I stumbled on the deed, but it had not been recorded for years. And there's a mystery concerning A.B. Brewster, but yet it was called Brewster's Bluff. He ran the ferry at first. In fact, I think he's the one that put it in. But when I began to investigate A.B. Brewster, little bits here and little bits there, he came to this county with cash. And of course, as long as nobody knew he had that cash, maybe they wouldn't attack him. But something happened to that man. He ran that ferry and owned that land. And he, the deed that finally came out, a long time after the voters had it, a deed dated 1837. And here we are, 1847. 10 years later, that deed had not been recorded. And it was from a Dubois who got the original grant. But these were people that were in Mexican Texas, and they got big plots of land. And then they'd sell them off to other people. Well, I found that deed, but it wasn't recorded till so late, until all this had happened to this crossing before that deed showed up. And in 1837, he made a deed that said he was deeding this land to A.B. Brewster, this crossing of the river, on both sides of the river, a league and a labor. Well, that's a lot of acres. That's over 4,500 acres. And when you think of 4,500 acres, pretty good sized plot of land.
Yes, it is.
And that for $1,000, he deeded that to A.B. Brewster. And A.B., but it hadn't been surveyed yet, didn't even know where it was. And it was agreed that A.B. Brewster would get the authorities to locate and survey the land and pay the expenses of having it done. And when this was done, Du Bois, Antoine Du Bois, would secure an official title if he had trouble getting title. Well, the land on the map today, on the land grant map, and we have an original land grant map, has Antoine Du Bois' name on it still. So it was granted to him, and then he had to sell it, and A.B. Brewster had to buy it from him. So A.B. Brewster's name is not on that map at all. But that deed that showed up all that time later explained why it's called Brewster's Bluff. Well, then I began to investigate what became of Brewster. And I'm still mystified. He came here, apparently, all alone, with no relatives, with that much money to buy property. And he made friends with Mr. Sheldon. And the Vaughters, I can't get around to telling all this in the time we have, the Vaughters bought the land from Sheldon. When did Sheldon get it? And who is Sheldon? How did he get that land? It was A.B. Brewster's, and it's Brewster's Bluff, and then suddenly the Brewster was no more. No explanation of where he went, what became of it. No deed that I have found anywhere of his selling it to Sheldon or giving it to Sheldon. There ought to be some kind of an official paper. And only after Sheldon sold this land to the Vaughters did that deed from Antoine Du Bois to A.B. Brewster show up. And it's signed, it's official because it's signed by several witnesses, and we have their names. And they have wrote an extra little note on it. See, land deals, it's just so fascinating to get into. They traded them like trading horses. And a lot of times did it illegally. And this was just bordering on illegality, and I'm afraid some foul play must have hit Brewster. I don't know. And I can't say positively, but I'm still mighty interested. And I've been, well, several of us have been interested in finding out what became of him, because it carried his name, and that was such a well-known road that all of the early records tell about the coming down the old Grand Bluff to Douglas. Douglas is a town, old town near Nacogdoches. And that road crossed the entire county of Panola. See, it joined Trammel's Trace up just this side of Mount Enterprise. And it went through Old Beckville. It went through the Fairplay area, the other side of Fairplay. It went through Williams Settlement, the other side of Fairplay. It went through Reed Settlement at Clayton. And it suddenly was being called, well, in 1 year there, after the county was formed in 1846, it called it Brewster's Bluff or Grand Bluff. And then the next time the minutes were written, it's just Grand Bluff. And from then on, it was Grand Bluff. And the name Brewster was lost. But I'm not through with the name Brewster, because the Brewsters have been in this county all these years, and I'm wondering what the story is. There's bound to be more to it than that. What became of Mr. Brewster, who had right at that land at Grand Bluff, And that got to be a busy town. Now, when the Vaughters got it, when Lucinda Vaughter and her husband died after they had started dickering for that ferry, in fact, he got the license to run that ferry before his death. But when they finally closed the deal, he was dead, and she made the deal. She and her 6 children signed the deed, so I have all that. But all of that, they had a store, and then this became a shipping port, and it was a very busy thing. So many people came through there. They were just, that ferry was going back and forth all the daylight hours, getting people across that river. And there's mystery there, a whole lot of mystery. And because the cemetery has lost graves, it doesn't help us. And there still may be some papers somewhere we haven't unearthed. But this is a game that you just get into, and you can't stop.
There you go. I understand.
But those people had to be hardy people, and I'm not trying to prove anybody dishonest, but strange things did happen. And maybe he fell overboard accidentally or something in the river. I don't know. But how did Sheldon get the land? I haven't found any evidence of Sheldon's getting the land, but he sold the land. Who was he? How did he get it? And because it's an important landmark, I'd love to know. I'd love to put it in the record.
Maybe someone in the listening audience.
Maybe so. Maybe somebody knows. And this is one of my purposes for tossing this out this morning. Maybe somebody knows.
Well,
I'm always digging, but I don't always find the answer.
As they say in East Texas, you certainly opened a can of worms.
I wanted to.
Oh, maybe. Well, we're just about out of time. We got about 30 seconds left to do some wrap-up.
Well, we are on schedule to get our opening on date in October, the big 100th anniversary. We have made a purchase this week that I'm proud of, because we have worried about moisture in the building. And we do know what it needs, and there's not a building in this town that has it. And so we got a, what do you call them that takes the moisture out? It's a mechanical little deal.
Demoisturizer.
Yeah. Well, we've tried to get the air conditioner set so it took the moisture out down to a certain percent to preserve the microfilm, to preserve the documents that we have that are very old. And we hadn't ever been totally satisfied with that. And when we had lightning, you know, hit our unit and had to redo it last week, we realized that, you know, it's up to us. We must do something about this. So now we have one of those little moisture taker outers. I don't know what it's called.
All right.
And it's surprising how much moisture has already accumulated out of that room, out of those rooms. The little pan
fills up.
Yes, I couldn't believe it. I said, "You mean that was in this air?" And so we think we have the security now for our documents.
Good.
But you have to crawl before you can run, and that was one of the things we had to wait for.
Do you have your red blazer in the car? We
I
have
will
a few
have
activities
it. And
today.
yes, Chester mentioned to me last night, "Are you going to be at so-and-so?" I said, "Chester, y'all are overdoing it for old ladies like me. I'm not able to keep up with these ambassadors. Here I started at 8:30 this morning. I have another engagement at 9:30, and then that luncheon. And in between, they said there was a 10 o'clock thing. I said, count me out. I can't put in another one.
Well,
and then there's a 4 o'clock.
That's right. Let's remind everybody, see if I can keep up with them.
Okay.
We begin at noon. Well, let's begin at 10 o'clock. And there's a reception for Mr. C.G. Bowie, retiring school teacher, band director. That will be at Panola National Bank.
Right.
And that's at 10. At noon today, you want to be sure and go to Joe's Family Restaurant for the
now, I do have my jacket for that, for sure.
Agriculture Appreciation Banquet, and there'll be a lot of awards given out, but they promise you they'll start promptly at 12 and be done by 1, and have followed the schedule for years and have done it well. Let's see, then at 4 o'clock, we go to McDonald's, and the youngsters, or the grandchildren, whichever the case may be, will enjoy that. because the official opening of the new playground at McDonald's restaurants and the Hatfields, the new owners, will be there. And we want to take a moment, if you haven't had a chance to meet them, and shake their hand, because they're quite fine and pleasant people.
Well,
you'll
that's
enjoy
nice.
them. They'll be good neighbors.
And they are from where?
From Marshall.
That's what I thought.
They're from Marshall.
Well,
So those few items, and I'm sure that I have missed something. And KGAS will be at McDonald's, and we'll also be, for you people who will not be able to make the Ag Appreciation Luncheon, we'll be broadcasting that live, so you won't be able to, if you can't make it, you'll be able to hear the activities going on there. And then we'll be out at McDonald's, and they've got all kind of things planned for the young kids. They've got balloons and little goodies to give them.
They have a way of bringing the children in.
Oh, they do. And so you don't want to miss all that.
Talking about the Hatfields from Marshall, I may know them already. Of course, I've been serving, on the Area Arts Council in Marshall for about 10 years now. And they've been trying to get me to move to Marshall. Now we're going to do it reverse.
There you
we're
go.
going to get them over here.
Just take the best that they have and bring it down here and make what we have better.
Right. They've been telling me they need me in Marshall, and I said, well, I need to be where I belong.
Ms. LeGros, thank you for coming again today and sharing the wealth of information which you have gathered. We appreciate it and look forward to next Thursday as well.
And if anybody knows what became of Brewster, let me know.
Please, please. We don't want to let this mystery...
If there's a deed anywhere that I've missed, I'm going to find it.
We don't want to let this mystery become unsolved.
That is right. That is